Hail Og Saul, my tribe, and welcome to the Modern Barbarian Podcast. For the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about making a plan to get yourself ready for the upcoming societal upheaval. No matter who wins the next election cycle in this country, things are going to take a turn for the worse, at least for a little bit. During the run up and the elections themselves, things are going to be bad. This is the year to make sure you have your ducks in a row. A civil war seems almost inevitable at this point. Hell, even Hollywood is making movies about it. With that said, let's take the first piece of my plan to be more self reliant and start working on it. My lowest score was in my equipment. Having and knowing how to use the right equipment to maintain the homestead was my worst overall score. So I'm going to work on that. But equipment is expensive, and the economy is shit right now. So every dollar counts. That's why we are talking about the topic we're talking about today: buying and trading used equipment. So, used equipment. Knowing how to find things that are used and to use them for your purposes, getting a better deal. I mean, on average, used equipment costs half of what something new costs. So if you go look at, let's use a chainsaw, for instance, just because you're doing this, probably everybody's going to need a chainsaw, and it's something that you can buy used and do all right on. A brand new chainsaw, like say, well, the one I'm looking at, the Stihl MS261. I think it's the 262 now. But that brand, the entry level, professional grade, lifetime chainsaw, right? That chainsaw runs between $550 and $650 new, and that's just a power head. You're going to have to buy a bar and a chain to go with that, and all the other stuff that you need if you don't already have it. So you're looking at, $900 for this new chainsaw, bar, chain, a couple chains, but still the equipment that you need to take care of it and to have it to be able to do what you need. Whereas I'm going to pick up one later on today that was, I'm buying an older model. It's the 260, not the 261. It's about 15 years old, but they're still carbureted 50cc 4 horsepower chainsaws, right? Same size bars and everything. Stihl just upgraded the model a little bit, but they work the same. They're the same size. I'm gonna go pick one up for $200. And actually, I've got the guy talked down to $150, and that's on the stipulation that I get there and it starts and runs like it's supposed to. Now, if I need to do some minor work to it or something like that to make it the way I want to, kind of like I'm working on the backpack blower I got, you know what I'm saying? That's okay, but that is a considerable sum less than a $600 new chainsaw for the exact same capability. Hell, the same brand, same basic saw, slightly older model. So, I think everybody should know how to buy and trade used equipment. And I think everybody should know how to work on it. And I think buying used equipment gives you the opportunity to learn that equipment when you go over it, make sure everything's good before you trust it. So that said, let's start off by talking about where I buy my used equipment at. My number one place is the Facebook Marketplace. Again, I love to use the tools of our enemies against them. And I know by me participating in it, I'm helping their system and helping them make money, I guess. But they're going to make a buttload of money no matter what I do. There are too many people in the world that are too comfortable, and they're never going to stop using these types of things. So I might as well use them to my advantage. I look at it like this. Some people have like this philosophical belief that they can't use this type of stuff because it's helping the enemy. Let's harken back to our barbarian ancestors. Do you think that they would have shied away from using the weapons of their enemy if they needed to win? If they existed today in the form that we wanted them to, do you think that they would shy away from guns because they were not barbarian enough? Absolutely not, right? They would use the best tool for the job no matter what it took to use it. And for many of us, for what we're talking about, that's going to be these online internet things. So, Facebook Marketplace, that's the number one place that I find used equipment. There's always somebody on there willing to do some trading and or selling at a reasonable price to go get some stuff. The next one is Craigslist. Craigslist is the old Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace has kind of taken over most of what Craigslist did, but Marketplace or Craigslist still has some good deals to be found, and you can still do some buying at a reasonable price. And my preferred method is trades. I like to trade a lot, and you can still find that on there a lot too. And then the last one is locally. Now, again, we're going to talk about some internet stuff here, so I know it sounds weird, but there are local Facebook groups to your county or your city or your region where people go in these groups to list things they have for sale or that they want to trade. Join as many of them as you can and keep an eye out for what's coming through when you have a few minutes. Don't dedicate your life to hunting used equipment, right? But when you find something that you need and that you don't have, go and search these Facebook groups or online sale boards to see if something pops up that you could use at a reasonable price. You also have local sale boards, so like newspaper classifieds or sale boards at your local feed stores and these types of things that are out there that you can find where people, the old school way, put up a little poster with tear tabs with their phone number on it, right? Sometimes you can find stuff that way. And then again, like I said, I got it listed here twice and running off of a syllabus. Really? That's what I said? A syllabus? It's not a syllabus. It's an outline. I'm running off of an outline. So sometimes I get to talking and overrun my points. But anyway, the newspaper classifieds are also a good one, especially the local only papers or local buy sell trade papers. Those will have a lot of good stuff. So focusing on those areas, you can go on and find the thing that you need. Now, for some of you, you may have never done any of this online purchasing before like this, or you may have never tried to negotiate a trade before, so you're not quite sure how you do it. And I'm going to tell you right now, trades are where it's at. You can take things that you already have and trade them for other objects that eventually turn into what you need, or sometimes just straight trade them into what you need, right? For example, my new, to me, backpack blower. It's a Stihl BR600. Professional grade, backpack blower. I used my father-in-law's, realized how good it was to have one compared to the little electric thing that I was using, especially on a property the size that I have, and I decided I wanted one, and I went to go look. They're like $750 brand new. Some places you can find them on sale for like $550, but that's still, on average, it's called a $650 backpack blower. That's a lot of money to blow leaves around. So I decided I was going to try and get my hands on one on my trade routes, right? The way I like to do things. So I go through my shop and I start looking for stuff that I have that I don't need anymore. And I found an old set of amplifiers and speakers. When they were new, were probably $500 or so ish. But they're older stuff and they've just been sitting around and I'm not using them. And I decided, okay, let's see what I could do with this as sale trade material. So I put them up online on the for sale for trade stuff and just see what comes up. And I keep on in the background looking at these used blowers available online and finding the people that look like they like to trade and that kind of stuff. So I get a few of those scaled up, saved in my queue, and I've got this equipment for sale. And I keep getting people lowballing me all the time. You're going to deal with that, right? You're going to have to be okay saying no thank you to some of these people that are going to offer you $75 for something you're asking $200 for, kind of thing. Wait, be patient, give it a couple weeks, right? And I had a guy come across and he offered me a Savage semi-automatic 22 rifle in trade for this stereo equipment. I was like, yeah, bring it over. Let's look it over, make sure everything's good, and we'll do the swap, right? So it brings me the rifle. Everything looks good, no issues. It shoots like it's supposed to. straight, ready to rock, no major rust or issues like that. He looks at the equipment, he's happy, we do the swap. So now I've got this high value trade item, which we're gonna look at that on the trading versus buying section here in a second after I tell this story. But high value trade items are things that people generally will go after pretty quickly in trades. Firearms is one, and power equipment like chainsaws, backpack blowers, those types of things, anything that somebody might need that's usually high cost. Uh, those could be high value trade items, but we'll get into that, like I said. So I've got this high value trade item. And it's only a couple $100 gun, new, but it's a gun, right? And so I offer to one of the people I've got saved in my thing, hey, if you're open to trades, I would trade you this rifle I have for that backpack blower. And he's like, yeah, let's take a look. Send me some pictures. Send some pictures. We talk about it. He's like, well, this blower is worth about 3 times what that rifle is new. And so can you add anything to it? And we do some negotiating. Like, well, your blower's far from new. It's got duct tape all down the tube holding stuff together, broken parts. I'm going to spend some money on it. But what I do have is I got this old metal sign. Don't get excited. It wasn't one of the super expensive ones. It came out of a car dealer in like the late 90s, early 2000s. But it was just a flat piece of metal with like vinyl lettering on it with the Dodge logo on it. It's like I could throw this old sign I've got in that I'm not using. And it turns out his dad was into old signs, and so they took the deal, right? This gun that I traded old crap out of my shop for, and this old sign out of my shop that I needed out of the way anyway. And I drive up there and I take it and I see, the blower runs. I'm looking it over. Everything seems to be okay. Doesn't look like it's got any major leaks. It may have a minor leak. The air filter was still intact, although dirty, so it wasn't ingesting a bunch of air. Little stuff like that. And I bring it home, and I've got a whole YouTube series I'm putting together about going over this backpack blower as my first major trade for the channel to show what I do when I get equipment in. So those will be coming in the coming weeks as I get those edited. But so here I am, we make the trade, and I've turned junk out of my shop basically that I didn't want anymore, that was in the way, that a lot of people would have taken to the dump. Found people that still had a use for it, and now I've turned this into this piece of equipment that I needed to take care of the homestead. Now I've got a couple hours and probably another 50, 60 bucks worth of replacement parts. Now I buy those all used, right, to get this up to where I want it. But still, it's, it turns junk and time and a small amount of money into something that if I was to go try and buy new would have been hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So that's just one story of how this goes, and there will be matching YouTube videos to show you how this thing went and all that stuff. But another great place to buy stuff online is online forums. You'd be surprised how well you can do on a dedicated online forum to finding certain equipment that you need or things that you need. Car World is a big one. If you're into building cars, the forums, there's always kind of cool parts in their buy, sell, trade section on there. Power equipment and tractor forums always have tractors and implements and power equipment on sale. Buy, sell, trade forums on there. Now, a lot of time what you're going to run into is you're going to get a higher quality, better cared for piece of equipment on the forums than you would get like from a Facebook marketplace, but you're going to pay a premium for that. Because people that are going to go to a steel equipment forum and talk to people about it and take the time to learn and read and take care of their equipment are going to be the kind of people that want to go read about it all the time on a forum. But they're going to be the kind that know what it's worth, know that it's properly taken care of, and have a higher quality product usually. So they can demand a little bit more of a premium for that. Still, about half of what new cost should be the top dollar that you're willing to pay for used equipment. All right, so let's get into a little bit about trading versus buying. First off, in the trading world, you're going to need what I call high value trade items to make this lucrative and an easy enough thing for you to do. There's some one-off things that you might get lucky on, but for the most part, nobody's going to want in a trade, and they'll sit there forever. And then there's the fast-moving high-value items. Guns, power equipments, anything that runs on, or big tools, right? Like air compressors or power washers or chainsaws, backpack blowers, tillers, anything like that that would have a high new value that you can get a hold of for a reasonable price and refurbish yourself and flip is where your high value trade items are going to come from. You also need to pay attention to trends. I could have made a killing on Stanley Cups had I known about that trend, right? I didn't learn about it too late, but you could always, find out what the local trends are or big online trends, and you can move on those pretty quickly if you got some stuff. Like I got a classic Stanley thermos that I hardly ever use that probably in that big push I could have traded it for something way more valuable than it was just because people wanted it. You also need to learn to be patient when trading so that you can, what I call, trade up. Don't trade down, right? So always try to trade for high value trade items and always try to trade for things that are worth slightly more than what your trade piece is, right? So a lot of people that don't have money that want something will trade something of higher value for that thing that they own, right? Just like the stereo equipment. A couple $100 for the stereo equipment, and old. This stuff was 10 or 15 years old. I was using it in college and high school and stuff. Still in good, perfectly working order, just older equipment. Now, was worth less than that gun was. But the gentleman had the gun. He said he had a bunch of 22s. He probably was using it as a high value trade item to get into something he wanted, kind of like I did with trading it for my blower. And so he moved it over to this equipment that he wanted, but that was a trade up for me. I traded from this stuff that I had into a high value trade item, which then gave me the power to turn that high value trade item into something that I actually want. So that's what trading up is. Either getting something of higher value or turning it into a high value trade item that allows you to kind of go out there and find the exact thing that you want. Be like, hey, I've got this really cool thing that pretty much everybody likes. Do you want to trade that thing that I need for this high value trade item? Then finding things that need simple fixes and putting in a small amount of work also allows you to trade up sometimes. Some people either don't have the time, the gumption, or the knowledge to do the fixes, where you can learn that, everything's basically available on YouTube now, how-to videos and stuff. Another example here, I just made a trade yesterday. When I was younger, I decided I wanted to try possibly getting into some crossbow hunting. So I bought a dirt cheap, like $110 crossbow from Rural King, right? And I got the bag for it, and I got a couple things of bolts and some cheap broadheads, and it came with the little wax for the string and the cocker and all that. And I kept it all together, and I kept it in good shape. But I've never, ever hunted with it. Not the first time. Just never got into archery hunting. I've always preferred the rifles. So I shot it. I was okay with it, but wasn't something that I really enjoyed. So I listed it for trade. Guy comes up, trade values or some trade stuff that I consider, once I go over it, high value trade items. I got a name brand pressure washer. I can't remember which one it is now, but got a Briggs & Stratton engine on it, and good 2,500 I think PSI pressure washer with everything there. I also got two in this same trade, 220 volt big motor dual piston 25-gallon air compressors. A little bit older, cords are messed up on them. They'll need a little bit of work. But, these old piston-driven air compressors, the oil-based ones, are nearly indestructible. I'll check the motors and make sure they work, put new cords on the things, do an oil change, make sure the tanks are safe, probably slap a coat of paint on them so that they look nice and fresh. And I'll have two nice big air compressors, and I'll have to go over the engine on the pressure washer and make sure everything there works. But, either way, I got these three pieces of equipment for this old crossbow that I'm not using anymore, and was just sitting there taking up space. And these are, again, big tools, right? High value trade items. Power equipment and large, heavy tools are, high value trade items. And I got three that, yeah, I need to do a little bit of work on to go over and make sure everything's right. But I got three high value trade items. So as soon as I can make sure they all run, each one of those would be easily tradable for another piece of equipment that I need. Larger chainsaws. Maybe I could start turning some of this into money and saving up because I would like to have a bandsaw mill. All these types of things is stuff that you can do with these trade ups. So be willing to find things that need simple fixes and put in a little bit of work. It helps you learn the skills in the mechanic side and learning to fix equipment anyway, and it helps you turn what you have into things of higher value. Also, haggling when buying. Never pay full price. Not ever. If somebody's asking for something online, just don't do it. And if you're selling stuff, start 25 bucks high, knowing that people are going to haggle with you. It's just the way of the world, right? But you have to be comfortable making that step, right? A lot of people aren't. A lot of people are afraid something will be gone and never be seen again, and they'll just pay any asking price. Don't buy anything without haggling. Like, hey, are you willing to trade? Just send it in a message. Interested in what you've got? Are you open to any trades? They'll usually come back, yes, I like to trade, or no, this is cash only. But you got the door open, right? Now that you know it's cash only, you can start in, well, I'm interested, but I think what you're asking is just a little bit high. How would you take X, right? And I usually like to knock about 25% off of their asking price. Sometimes you get lucky and they say yes. I just had that happen with the chainsaw. I sold it for 200 bucks. Like, well, you're not interested in trades. Well, at first he was. And I told him a bunch of stuff. He didn't like anything that I had. Like, cool, that's fine. How about we do 150 bucks? Expecting him to counter offer. Fine with paying where they usually split the difference, right? If they're coming in at 200, you offer 150, they'll typically say 175, and you saved a little bit of money. The guy just said yes. He said, yep, I'll do 150. Come get it. We're on our way this afternoon to go pick it up, right? So, and that's a good professional MS260 saw for 150 bucks. I'm all over it, as long as it runs. So there's, stuff like that. But don't be afraid to haggle, because every dollar you save on this piece of equipment is either money you have towards making it nicer for yourself. Maybe I get there and it needs a spark plug and an air filter. It's running, but I can tell it needs a spark plug and an air filter. If I save 50 bucks on it, I've already got that covered in that savings. Or that's 50 bucks I could put towards the next thing that I need. So always be conscious of your money. Even if you have plenty of money, even if you could afford to go buy new stuff, I still think you'd be better off buying the used stuff and learning to take care of it and stretching that money out to go further. Give yourself some nest egg, right? Buy more stuff that you're going to need. Acquire it more quickly because you don't have to save as much to buy used. That's just how I feel about it. All right. Also, be willing to buy older equipment. That's going to be the last thing in the trading versus buying. And you can see here, I'm really leaning towards trading or buying used. But mostly, I'm talking about trading. Even when buying used, try to trade versus purchase when you can. You tend to get better deals that way, and everybody seems to be happier that way when they get something they think is cool for something that you think is cool. All right. But be willing to buy older equipment. A lot of times all this new stuff comes out, it's not engineered like the older stuff was. A lot of the older equipment was designed to run forever, especially like professional grade power equipment. They wanted that stuff to be bulletproof, so they designed it that way. Whereas a lot of the modern stuff, they're pushing the envelopes on power, on weight, because everybody wants the strongest, lightest thing that they can get, but they don't make them to last as long as they used to. They need these turning over and being replaced to keep up with costs, to keep making money. Whereas the older equipment, yeah, you might rebuild it once in your life, probably not, but the parts are still available, and you'll only ever do that once. Just take care of it, and you've got that piece of equipment forever. That's usually what I find. Now, sometimes the newer stuff is better, right? It is. There's been some big advancement, major changes, things that they can put in there, and it is. But don't be scared of older equipment. It's just as good. The world went by on older equipment forever. When that came out, it was the best that there was. You know what I'm saying? So don't be scared of it now. It's still plenty good. All right. Now, if you're going to be buying a trade and you're going to deal in used equipment, you're going to have to know where to get parts for the used equipment. And I'll tell you now, eBay is the king of used parts, especially in the power equipment world. It's really hard to find used parts that are in good shape locally, but you can find them on eBay for pennies on the dollar compared to new parts. For example, again, we're talking about the blower I got, and it's just a recent example, but you could do this with anything. There's the person that I got it from, it was clear the tube had been run over by a lawnmower, not like the blade part, but the wheel part at some point in its life. The little clamp that holds the control handle on, so you got your trigger and you can push it around to point your tube, it was broken off and just duct taped back to the thing. There was also some special clamps that were supposed to be on it to hold it together, and a thing called a slip ring so that the handle can turn back and forth. Those were all missing. It was just all jammed together and duct taped. So I go on eBay and I start looking, and if you want the whole throttle control handle assembly and all that stuff, it's like $150. But the only thing that's broke on the one I have is the little clamp. You get on there on the used market, and I buy a used one from somebody's parting these old blowers out for like $9, right? And that included the shipping to my door. So that part's on its way. The missing little insert ring and the clamp, those were another $15 total together, shipped to the door, right? So, and that's all this thing. Oh, I needed an air filter and a spark plug, but you're gonna buy those new. You don't want used. You can get those local, or you can get them on eBay, or you can get them on Amazon or whatever, right? But for hard parts of these specific parts, you're just as well off to buy the used parts from somebody scrapping a blower, like they blew the engine on it, but the tube assembly and all that stuff was all fine. You take all that off and sell it, which is something you can do too. You can buy this old equipment, and even if something comes out, like I get out there and I find out that, say this pressure washer that I got has a blown engine. I doubt it does. I pulled it and I checked it and I don't hear anything weird, but just for say that it does, right? But the pump's still worth money. The hoses are still worth money. The cage is still worth money. Somebody out there has another one like that needs those parts. I can flip those parts and probably still make quite a bit of money just selling the parts, going all through it and flipping all those. But check online with used parts sellers to save yourself a lot of money. Also, buying broken versions of the same equipment is a good source of parts. Now, we were just talking about you can sell those parts yourself. You don't need them. But if you go out there and you find somebody that's got a backpack blower just like you, or a weed eater that's just like yours, and they've blown the engine or run over the shaft and it's all been all the crap and, it's not worth much anymore. If there's still parts on that you need for yours, a spare engine, or if it's the engine that's bad and you need a shaft, or, the handles and the throttle assemblies and all this stuff, those are still good parts, right? So you can take the parts off of that, catalog what they are, put it on one of your shelves in your shop and have them for yours when you need them. And you probably buy that thing that's, messed up and not usable anymore for like $5 or $10. You couldn't buy the carburetor for that, let alone all the other parts you're going to get. So buying broken versions of the equipment you have is a good source of used parts, but don't turn your place into a junkyard, right? Don't buy 30 backpack blowers saying, oh, these are good parts, right? Unless you have specific dedicated space and you're going to run that like a business, that's fine. That's on you. That's all I'm talking about. 1 or 2 spares is probably enough. Sell the extras of the stuff that you don't need if you do this, but keep your space clean and not full of crap and junk so that you're not running out of space to do what you need to do, to store your equipment, to work on your equipment, and have space to set something new when you need it. And then never throw away hardware. You will need it again, right? So if you're taking apart a piece of equipment, the specialty screws that steel uses to hold plastic together are kind of pricey. Take them out of everything that you take apart. Put them in your parts bin. Write down what they are on the bin. Just have a bin for each of these types of hardware, right? As you're doing this, don't throw the stuff away, because then you're going to have to go buy it if you get one that you need it, or you break one or whatever. Just put yourself together a parts bin. See, kind of like this one. I know you guys see this here. This is actually for reloading for ammunition. but get like a giant one of these. You'll see it in some of my shop videos. You get them at Harbor Freight, dirt cheap. Metal racks that have little bins that go on them, right? And you can write down on the front of it with a marker or on a sticker or whatever what part that is, and just keep all those in there. Never, never throw away hardware. You'll always find one use for it. All right, we talked about some examples of some of the trades I've made lately. The speakers into the 22, and then the old side of the 22 into the backpack blower. The old crossbow into the compressors and all that stuff. I've got another one on the line here. And if you buy a homestead, this is one I particularly wanted to talk about, right? If you're buying property and getting started, don't be afraid to let the homeowners leave some stuff that they don't want, right? Over in my equipment shed, there's a couple things that they left here. There's a nice older Snapper 14 horse electric start riding mower, but the deck's been taken off of it. It looks like maybe their kid had it, was going to try and build a race mower out of it. So it's some parts missing, right? But I've got a guy with a wood chipper. It's much newer, running, ready to rock kind of thing, who's really interested in trading for this mower that I've got. So there's possibilities there, right? If they leave something that you may not much see a need for, be all right with it. Be prepared to haul it off if you have to, but list that stuff online and see if people will trade you for something you need first. You never know what people are into. Somebody may need parts off of that thing and be willing to trade something they have and don't need to get the parts to fix theirs. Or maybe the idea of a project mower that they can turn into like a little yard tractor. They can tow around a trailer and do some little stuff in their yard with because they don't have one. Sounds appealing. And they'll trade something they have to get something they need, right? Everybody out there, not everybody, but plenty of other people out there are doing the same kind of things that we're talking about. Trading stuff that they have for things that they need. And they need different stuff than you. You may have something that they need right now, and they have something you need. That's where trading works. You're getting stuff out of your way, they're getting stuff out of their way, and everybody's happy. So there's the examples that I wanted to give of how this works. And that's just stuff I've done in the last couple of weeks. I've been doing this for a lifetime, right? That's just stuff I've done in the last couple of weeks now that I have a place to actually do stuff again. Oh, gotta wet the old whistle here, talking a bunch. Yeah, the throat. But cold beer helps. All right, so other benefits of used equipment, right? We talked about the lower cost. It typically costs about half as much as new equipment. Second is you're building a skill. You get to practice your mechanic skills. Go over the equipment when you buy it. Check things out. Watch some YouTube videos on it. Learn the ins and outs and quirks of that equipment. Figure it out. Make sure it's good to go and know that, right? You're going to know that particular piece of equipment much better. And that's important because that's your equipment. That's what you have. So when something goes wrong with it, you've done a bunch of learning. You've done a bunch of looking. You've been in and out of it and understand your piece of equipment, right? So you'll be able to better troubleshoot it, better work on it, and keep it going longer. That's increasing your skills. That's increasing your ability to be self-reliant, not needing somebody else to fix your equipment for you. It also allows you to make local contacts when parts are needed, right? The hardware store up the street here, I'm actually, to build this contact, I'm paying them to fix my weed eater, right? I know it needs a carburetor. I left some bad fuel in it, forgot about it, thought I drained it. It gummed up the carburetor. It's going to need the fuel lines and the carburetor. I already know that, right? I could buy those parts for $20-$30. I go up there and I talk to the old guy at the hardware store. That he's the local Husky dealer. Tell him what's going on. It's like, yeah, I can take a look at that. Put a carburetor and some lines on it. Probably cost you $35 to $45. That's $10 or $15 difference that I could have used. Don't get me wrong. But having that contact of somebody I know that's a professional at this, that I can talk to when I'm having problems with mine, that can back me up if I'm unable to solve a problem and it's just up the road, that's building a local contact. Not only that, but he owns a hardware store. So I will start shopping there regularly to have that small business local contact that knows power equipment and has a hardware store. That's worth a little bit of money. But I'm getting there from used equipment, right? Now this one happened to be my weed eater that I bought new many, many years ago. But instead of buying a new one, I treated it like used equipment. I needed to get this fixed and restored back into working order. I could do it myself, but I found this local contact for this one. Now I'll have a contact to go buy parts for Husqvarna stuff, right? And I have somebody I can talk to. Hey, this piece of equipment's doing this. What do you think it is? Oh, I see that all the time. It's this, because he fixes thousands of the things, right? Buy the parts from him, come home and do it myself. Learn from somebody. So local contacts are great. Don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money if you've got it. Let them fix one or two things. Show interest and learn from them, and you'll have a good local contact. If you're getting something that is not repairable, you can part it out and still make money, right? So be aware and be prepared that there are some cheats out there on the internet. That's why you need to be careful when you're doing this. Make sure that the piece of equipment runs. If you're being told that it runs and they're paying for a running value, you go pull the string and start it. Feel for something weird in it. Make sure that it recoils right. Listen for weird noises. See it work and actually used, right? Before you get it. If it's supposed to be running usable piece of equipment, see it be run and know that it's okay to run and use. If you're getting it for a way, way, way lower price, like 3 pieces of equipment and trade for a crossbow, fine, yeah. Spin the thing over. I still spun over the engine on that little power washer, made sure it wasn't seized up, wasn't banging, rattling, making any noises. Spun the compressors over on the other one, made sure that they weren't seized up or anything like that. But, that's about it. I'm not going to go into a deep dive on stuff that I'm getting dirt cheap. And if one of those pieces of equipment turns out to be fixable and usable, I got my money out of it. I have a feeling all 3 will be. But I can also part out the stuff instead of just throwing it away. You're right? Pull the stuff apart. If the motor's good, sell the motors. If the compressor's good, sell the compressor. If the tank's good, sell the tank. Maybe people need the wheels off of it. Whatever. Get some pictures of it, list it online, list it for sale locally, or turn it into something else, right? If the motor and the compressor head are dead, plug it off, put some fittings and things on it, and make it into a portable air tank, and sell the portable air tank for $50. Right? There's always a way to sell used parts for a small amount of money to get to somebody something needed to recoup what you got, and you learn the skill of working on stuff. Also, with used equipment, you typically can get higher quality equipment for lower money. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of specifically right now, we're talking about outdoor power equipment, are going to have a homeowner grade and a professional or industrial grade. I know Husqvarna and Steel do this. I know some Echo does this. Some other power equipment places do that. John Deere does it with like mowers and stuff. They got your lighter duty homeowner stuff that they can sell for a lower price, and then you got your great big, professional logger chainsaws or professional landscaper mowers, weed eaters, backpack blowers, that type of stuff that are built different. They're designed to run forever. They're designed, well, not forever, but you get the point. They're designed to be used professionally, 8 hours a day, all day for years. Whereas homeowner grade stuff is designed to be used once or twice a week for a couple years before it goes bad. So what you can do by buying used, especially if you're buying from a person, not a business, you typically find people that want that higher grade stuff because it holds the value better, but you can get it at half price, right? So you can get a pretty low hour, older piece of professional grade equipment. Maybe they decided they wanted the newest, fanciest saw, or they needed a bigger one, or they like the 800 backpack blower instead of the 600, right? So they go get that and they sell their old one to recoup the cost. You can get it much cheaper, but you're getting that high grade, professional quality product instead of the homeowner designed product for less than the homeowner equipment would have been new anyway. And these pro quality stuff, the stuff that's designed to be used by a business, parts are more readily available, typically more affordable. They're usually easier to work on because they're set up that way to be fixable pieces of equipment Whereas a lot of the homeowner stuff is designed to use it till it's consumed and throw it away. You're also going to find better features in those equipment. Compression releases for easier starting, better ergonomics, things mounted on springs to help with the vibration of using them long time, all that stuff. It just typically is a better piece of equipment, and you can get that professional level equipment for the lower price. Well, that's about it. So, for instance, as a wrap up, right? Taking this all and turning it into something usable. Make a list of the things you need and an inventory of the stuff you have that you don't need, right? Take your inventory of stuff that you have that you don't need. Start getting it out there in the marketplace. Put it up for sale. Always put in your listings that you're willing to do trades, right? And start wheeling and dealing those deals. Look at your stuff on break. Check it a couple, here and there. Don't go crazy with it. Don't let it consume you. But here and there, check it 2 or 3 times a day. And you'll start turning stuff you have and don't need into things you need and don't have. Right? And then sell or trade what you have to get the things you need. Step 2. Step 3. Be willing to work on something to get a good deal, but be wary of junk. Like we talked about. Do your checks. Make sure that it's actually something you need. And be picky. If you're a steel guy, hold out for a steel. If you're a Husqvarna guy, hold out for Husqvarna. If you just want good quality and you don't care about the name brand, do the research. Make sure you're getting pro grade stuff and trade for any of it, right? But don't trade just to be making a trade because you're excited. Hold out for the thing that you want and need in the quality that you need it for. And in the used market, I say stick to name brands. Why do I say that? Parts availability. If you're buying new, right, and you want to go try out the Chinese chainsaw, like they're supposed to have an 880, steel 880 comparable chainsaw from China right now. And I've seen videos on it, people actually liking them for like $400 or $500. If I decide to do chainsaw milling, I may try one of the things. But I'm going to buy it new. That way I know it's fresh because I have no idea how to get parts for a Chinese chainsaw. Right? And I would probably still rather buy a good used pro grade saw if I can find one to do it than I would buy the Chinese one. I might would do it for the YouTube channel, but again, I would rather have the used one. So stick to name brands. But all this said and done, get out there and do something. Get out there and do something. Start swapping and trading for stuff. Start making moves towards where you need to be. Time is limited. We are in the election year. Things will get tough. This winter, I'm practicing adding heat to the house with wood and finding out my fireplaces aren't doing a very good job of it, especially with the wood I have. So I'm going to have to be working on some changes to that. But I'm doing that by practicing and learning now, right? So start doing things now. This next winter after the election, if the power costs triple, we're going to turn the HVAC off and start heating another way, right? We better find out now if that's a viable option. So do something every day to make your homestead better, because anything less is unacceptable. You guys are still here? You made it all the way to the end? Well, if you made it all the way to the end, that means I must have done something right. So go down there to the bottom and hit the little like thingy, right? If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe thing. Push the bell. Tell it to notify you when we put out some cool stuff, right? Help us stick it to the government. Help us get this word out there. Help us show everybody what they need to be doing. Because if you made it all the way to the end of this, that means you think like me. If you think like me, that means you're getting ready like me. And we scare them. And don't be scared of that. Embrace it. Hit the shit at the bottom.